If you're after a posh small family hatchback, your choices are the new Audi A3, the Mercedes A-Class, the BMW 1 Series, and of course, the Volkswagen Golf. Today I'm going to find out which of these four cars is best.
Ja, we have a very German good test. Boom, boom, German techno. Ja, we got Ingolstadt, Stuttgart, Munich, Wolfsburg.
Sorry. Right, let's kick off this group test by talking about the price. So the Volkswagen starts from just over £23,000, the BMW £25,000, the Mercedes just under £24,000, and the Audi just over £23,000. Audi always does a great job of redesigning its cars without overdoing it, but always ensuring they look smarter and more desirable than before. This rear part is actually inspired by the Sport Quattro, and you can see like the extended haunches. Though Audi's designers claim that this part was inspired by the Lamborghini Countach. I'm not really seeing that, are you? It's a bit like me saying that this video review has been inspired by the film Casablanca. Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine. The BMW 1 Series is certainly no Ingrid Bergman. It's all down to that grille. It looks like he's having some severe dental work done. Everyone actually goes on about the size of BMW's latest grilles, but they're way smaller than Audi's. It's just that Audi manages to do grilles a lot better. In fact, I'd rather go to Audi's house for a barbecue than BMW's. As you move down the side of the car, it looks a bit better, though it's still a bit meh. Whereas around the back, it's very, very smart. I like the rear end. In fact, this car is a case of nice arse, shame about the face. In contrast, the Mercedes A-Class's rear end is its least successful part, but it still looks good, although I'm not so keen on this. Like the horribly fake exhaust was exposed by the carwow stick of truth, and a fake diffuser like you'd get on a racing car. Like this car needs downforce for going around town into the shops. Down the side, it looks really sharp, really like the proportions and the creases. At the front, it's a big status symbol, isn't it? That huge Mercedes grille. And let's be honest, that's one of the reasons people will be buying this car. The Golf doesn't quite have the badge appeal of the other Germans, but you'd hardly call it a budget brand. Also, it's a reasonably smart looking car. It always has been, and because I haven't changed it that much over the years, it probably always will be. I'm not so sure about this colour paint and that new face either. It's sort of like the car's got a migraine. It's going, oh, I've got a splitting headache. Get me the codeine, will you? When you climb inside the Golf, you feel as though the codeine has started to take effect because everything's just calming. It's not too radical, yet it feels modern enough. Material quality is nice generally, yeah. So all the bits you're going to touch feel suitably solid and luxurious. Bits low down are cheaper, but that's to be expected. VW has actually got rid of a lot of the buttons. Most of the work is done through the screen. You can actually control climate temperature by swiping here, which is a bit odd rather than pressing a button. But if you want to do the fan speed, you do have to bring up the climate and then do it that way. There we go, which is a bit annoying when you're driving. As standard, every car gets this big screen. This is actually the upgraded one with the inbuilt satellite navigation and gesture controls and voice commands. To tell you the truth, you don't actually need it because it's 1,600 quid and the standard system is as big as that, and you're going to use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto anyway. As standard, you also get a digital driver's display, which is nice and clear. You can move through different views. It's very simple to do, and you can make the display a little bit bigger if you want to as well. All very simple, all very clear, all very Volkswagen. The Audi isn't quite so Audi though. You see, in the past there was a clear distinction in terms of interior quality of the A3 compared to the Golf, but now it's not really any better. In fact, some of the materials feel a little bit cheaper than they did in the old A3. Also, there's the design of the dash. I really like this part. It's very modern, cool, but there's a weird stitch in it, like someone slashed it and they had to repair it. Also, this part, the instruments, inspired by a Lamborghini Urus, and they just don't seem to fit with this part. It looks like the guy who designed this was working in a different location to the guy that designed this part, and they tried to do it all together over a Zoom call because of COVID, and it just came out a bit of a mess. As standard, you get two big screens, one central infotainment system and one digital driver's display. The main infotainment system is pretty easy to use, though the graphics are dark. You do get satellite navigation and all that kind of stuff, but obviously you're just going to use your mobile phone, aren't you? The digital driver's display is really nice. It's nicer than the one in the Golf, and you can actually upgrade it to a bigger widescreen version, but you don't really need to because the standard setup is pretty clear, and once again you can change the views. Oh look, we've got Google Maps here. Yeah, I like that. I think Audi does the best digital driver's display. The BMW 1 Series is the only car here that doesn't get a fully digital driver's display as standard. You get part digital dials. This one has the upgraded system, which isn't that great either. The display's dark. I'm not a fan of the layout of the dials, and it just doesn't show as much information as in the other cars. If you get the upgraded digital driver's display, it comes as part of a pack with an upgraded infotainment screen. So normally you have a slightly smaller screen. This is the bigger one, all singing, all dancing, and it's pretty lovely. Nice and easy to use, and you can control it. Touchscreen, swivel wheel, voice commands, gesture controls. For some reason it doesn't understand that one, and it should. The rest of the cabin is really nice. I think the design is better than the Audis and the VWs, and the quality is slightly better as well. So squidginess extends all the way down here. I think overall the 1 Series has the highest quality materials here on the inside. Inside the A-Class, there are a few bits and pieces which feel a bit cheap that you wouldn't find in the BMW, such as here. Yeah, and that's a little bit wobbly and that's scratchy. But other than that, this car blows the other three into the weeds for interior design. I mean, look at it. It's just so much cooler. It's dominated by these screens. Though be warned, cars lower down the range have slightly smaller screens, so you have to upgrade to get the full widescreen effect, but it's well worth the extra cash. The infotainment system itself is the best here as well. So like the BMW, you can control it with a touchpad, you can swipe and stuff like that. There's voice commands, but the layout is just easier to use than the BMW. The graphics are clearer as well. The digital dials are really nice, and you can change the view of those and the look of them as well. The Audi is a bit better in the way that it will show full widescreen mapping. This won't, but it's still very good. It's close. Another thing I like about the A-Class is the way Mercedes put the gear selector on the steering column. It's just so much easier to use than having to go down here. Now, all the other cars do have quite small gear selectors if you have them in automatic mode, but that system is just way better. Everyone should do that. The only annoying thing is that because this main screen is so widescreen, when you use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, they don't fill the screen and it looks a bit naff. Bugger. All of these cars are supposed to be able to cope with family life, and here in the back the A-Class has enough room. I'm just over 5'10", and look, I'm fine for headroom, plenty of knee room. Even people over 6 foot will be fine. If you need to carry 3 in the back at once, it's a little bit of a squeeze. This central seat is quite firm, so it's not the most comfortable for the person in the middle, but the people either side can just about cope. In terms of carrying child seats, well, the door isn't that big, so it's a bit of a fiddle to get the baby seat in, but because there's plenty of space between the back seats and the front seat, you don't have to move the front seat too far forward if you're trying to carry one of those bulky rear facing seats, and the ISOFIX anchor points are really easy to get to. It's surprisingly spacious actually back here. Mercedes have done a good job, apart from this. The way they designed that looks like a face, like sort of always looking at you, weirding you out. Yeah. The rear seats of the A3 feel a little bit tighter, not by much, but you do notice it ever so slightly. Doesn't help with these seats, just like the Mercedes, they're integrated headrest design, but they're just a little bit wider, so it's harder to see out the front, which kids won't like. Adults would be fine in terms of knee and headroom just about, though those over 6 foot are going to notice that the roof curves in at the top, so you end up brushing your head across it if you're lucky enough to be over 6 foot. Obviously I'm not. If you need to carry 3 people in the back at once, it's actually all right for the person in the middle seat because it's a comfy chair, though it is quite cramped for shoulder room, and yet again the people on the outer side are pushed outwards and their heads really just touch that, so it's not great for the outer 2 passengers. This is the worst car of the 4 for carrying 3 people in the back at once in, though to be fair, none of them are that great. It's also the hardest to fit a big bulky rear facing child seat in as well. Once again, because of that sloping roof line, makes it hard to maneuver it into place, and then you do have to push this front seat quite a way forward to make it fit. There's another thing that annoys me as well. Audi A3 is supposed to be premium. Here in the back, horrible scratchy plastics up here. What's going on there? Now you would expect to find some scratchy plastics in the back of the Golf, because after all, Volkswagen isn't technically a premium brand, and indeed, you do get some. You also get loads of space, decent knee room, decent headroom. That boxy shape really does help. People over 6 foot will be fine back here. And if you carry 3 abreast in the back, even those on the outer seats won't have their heads pushing up against the roof. Now, the person in the middle might feel a little bit squished because this car's body isn't exactly the widest. It's about the same as the Audi's. It's just that generally overall there is a bit more space in here. Also, it has the biggest rear windows, so kids will like that. So it does feel lighter in here. I also like this particular feature, these little extra pockets for your mobile phone. Yeah, that's good. Now, if you want to carry child seats, this is the best car for it. That square shape again and the wide door openings makes it easy to manoeuvre a seat in and slot it into place. Finally, we come to the back seats of the BMW, and look, we've got soft touch materials on the door top, as should be the case from a BMW. Mercedes has that feature as well. It's weird that the Audi doesn't. Can accept it on the Golf. Anyway, let's move on to space. It's fine back here. Though, this part of the roof does slope quite a bit, so people over 6 foot might end up rubbing their head against that. That's a bit of a problem when you've got 3 in the back at once, because then the outer people are pushed out and they will be rubbing their head against that. Which is a bit of a shame, because the middle seat is actually quite comfy, because the car's body is reasonably wide enough. When it comes to fitting a child seat in the back here, that sloping roofline does get in the way yet again, because it's hard to like manoeuvre the seat in. But once you've got it in, it's relatively easy to fit. So overall, I actually think that the Golf is the best in the back, then the Mercedes, then this BMW, and then the Audi A3, though it is really quite close between all 4. When it comes to carrying people's things rather than just people, the BMW actually does pretty well. The old car wasn't that great, but this is much better. It has a boot capacity of 380 litres. Now with the boot in this configuration, you can fit 5 carry-on size suitcases in it, but if you want to carry 1 more, you can do, but then you've got a deeper boot well, and then you can cram 1 more in. The functionality on the boot is all right. One slight problem is you don't have a ski hatch or through loading, which is a bit annoying. I'm just going to fold down the rear seats. See if they lie flat. Hopefully they will, and indeed they do. Look, well done BMW, it's better than before. Just like the 1 Series, the A3 has a boot capacity of 380 litres. It's as though the Germans are benchmarking their cars against one another. The only difference is that you can only fit 5 items of carry-on luggage in this car. I don't know what they did with the space, just didn't manage it as well as BMW. I like this though, look. The adjustable boot floor, so then you've hardly got a load lift, and what you didn't have on the BMW, through loading, which is handy, and when you fold the seats down they do lie completely flat. So the Audi is redeeming itself here. Good job. The Mercedes A-Class has the smallest boot on paper at 371 litres, but actually it is the most usable space. You can easily fit 6 carry-on luggage cases in there. It lacks a bit of functionality because you don't have an adjustable boot floor. Instead, you do have a bit of storage space under here, but you can't alter the height of this at all. Does mean you have a bit of a load lift, but I can't complain because as standard you get a fold-down middle seat for through loading, whereas on the Audi you only get it from sport trim and above. And when you fold down the rear seats in the back of the Mercedes, yes, they lie pretty flat. There's not much in it between these cars, but there is one more to check. Finally then, the Golf. So it wins the boot capacity contest at 381 litres, so 1 litre more than the BMW and the Audi. And does it make good use of that 1 litre? No, not really, because even with the forced floor in its lowest configuration, you can still only fit 5 items of carry-on luggage in the car. It's due to the shape. It's frustrating really. When you lift this up, look, there we go, you do reduce the amount of load lift to lift stuff over. If you need to carry longer items than 2 people either side, you have an old-fashioned style ski hatch, which isn't quite as practical as the full seat folding down. If you fold down all the seats, then you get a fairly flat load floor. The total capacity, 1,237 litres. In the Audi A3, it's 1,200 litres, same as in the BMW, and the Mercedes has 1,210 litres, so it's all much of a muchness. So if I think I was going for one based on its boot space, I'll probably just give it to the Mercedes because it's actually a very usable space. Now that's not going to be the main reason you're buying one of these cars. So let's move on to driving, as that is more important. Let's start off by driving the Volkswagen Golf. This car is a really good all-rounder. It's very, very comfy, it's relaxing. It's not exceptional in any way, shape or form. It's just extremely competent. It goes about its business in a very Golf-like way. So this engine is actually pretty economical. I'm averaging just under 47 miles per gallon out of it. This 1.5 litre petrol is quite nice. The only problem is when you want to suddenly overtake, you floor the throttle and it can start to shriek a bit as you're going a bit quicker. And sometimes if you're in the wrong gear and you've got a manual car, you can find yourself in a bit of a flat spot before the power picks up and then you're left floundering at junctions. Other than that though, there's very little to complain about with this car. It'll do it all for you. Motorway, town and a twisty road, because it'll grip onto the road better than you imagine, though it does lean quite a bit in the bends. But that's fine. It's Golf-like. Jumping out of the Volkswagen and into the Audi, everything feels precisely 1% better. Obviously, Volkswagen owns Audi, so the chassis is the same, the engine and gearboxes are the same, It's all pretty much the same, but there's just a little bit of extra Audi polish on this car. Being the S-Line, you get lowered stiffened sport suspension. Now you might think that would ruin the comfort, but it doesn't. It actually makes the car feel a little bit more taut without jarring you over bumps. So I think it's a really, really nice addition. I would definitely go for the S-Line version of this car as it looks better. Same engine as the Golf. Yeah, I'm getting 44 miles per gallon out of this one. This is the manual rather than the automatic, which is what the Golf is. I would definitely have the automatic. Don't have to change gears yourself. Once it's going, it's all right though. It's like a Golf, but like I say, just a bit better. The stiffened suspension does help you out when you get onto a twisty road though. It does make the car corner a little bit flatter through the bends, and as a result, it just feels a bit more sporty, a bit more fun, a bit more Audi. Now we come to the BMW 1 Series, and yet again there's another noticeable step up in sportiness. It actually starts with the seating position. It just feels a little bit more racy. The car actually feels a touch bigger. Also, you've got the M Sport suspension on this car, which lowers it, stiffens it, looks good, but it does make it quite firm over bumps. You really do notice them compared to the Audi. You also get a bit more tyre noise as well when you're going quickly compared to the other two cars. This one's got the 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine, and it's not as smooth as the 1.5s in the Volkswagen and the Audi. When you put your foot down, this automatic gearbox takes a little while to respond, and then it's going, and it's all right. Yeah, that's fine. In terms of economy, 37 miles per gallon. Where this car does stand out though is the handling. It's noticeably sharper than the other two cars. It just stays dead flat in the bends, and the steering's really responsive, though it sort of feels a little bit disconnected to the road, which is a bit disappointing. Still, overall, I think this is the car you want if you want the sportiest driving experience. If your commute to work takes in some twisty roads, you'll like a 1 Series. Finally then, we come to the Mercedes A-Class, and this is quite interesting because it sort of bridges the gap in terms of how it drives between the Audi A3 and the BMW 1 Series. It's not quite as sporty as the BMW, but it feels sharper to drive and more fun than the Audi. I think it's got the best steering out of all the cars, and it really lets you know exactly how much grip the front wheels have got. The engine in this car is my favourite as well. It's only 1.3, but it's got just a bit more pulling power than the other engines. Also the gearbox, this automatic dual clutch gearbox is very responsive. It's also quite smooth at changing gear when you're just pottering around. This car's suspension deals nicely with bumps. Overall, this is a really good compromise between comfort and fun. And that's kind of what you want in a car this size. You want it to be as sporty to drive as it is to look at. You don't want it driving you crazy by being too uncomfortable. As for the economy, that's all right. It's not quite as good as the Volkswagen or the Audi, but it's slightly better than the BMW. So then, what's my final verdict? Well, this group test is actually so close that to decide I'm going to do something a bit silly. I'm going to run about like an idiot, nice. And wherever I stop is the car, which I think is the best overall. Where will I stop? Will I stop? Will I... No. Would it be... It could be the Golf, maybe, I don't know. Could it be the A3? No, it's this. It's the Mercedes A-Class. It is a really good all-round car. Looks great. It's got great tech, lovely inside. It's nice to drive. It's really good value for money.